In a world full of plastic crossover SUVs and fake engine noise, there's one car that stands alone, forgotten by time, but not by me.
I would like to invite you all to set sail with us on our new series, Project Land Yacht, where I will be restoring my 1994 Buick Roadmaster to its former glory days. So in the 90s, GM had this brilliant idea. Let's take a high voltage ignition system and put it right under our water pump. I mean, you gotta get it to shoehorn into the F-bodies anyways, right? And so basically, removing one of these while they're in the car is pretty much the equivalent of doing heart surgery through someone's back with a spoon. And now the Optispark does get a bad rap, and yes, it deserves it. But with some upgrades, cleaning, and a little bit of black magic, we can definitely make this thing reliable, or at least less unreliable.
From a durability standpoint, ABITS is a 100,000-mile system.
The early models actually did not have any way of sucking ozone out of these. A lot of people think that these fill up with oil. They do fill up with oil. These produce ozone.
Ozone is heavier than air, so it settles on the bottom of the distributor.
And it has to be directed out. That is one of the upgrades. Let's try to find, there it is. These right here. Another thing you want to watch out for is your hoses. There's going to be two hoses. You want to check all the connectors, and especially this check valve right here. If any of this is clogged up or leaking, that also is not going to allow you to pull out the ozone from there, or oil or coolant, whatever gets in there. I actually have this apart right now. What we're going to do is we're going to actually take a peek inside and look at how everything looks in there. That looks pretty normal for the points. We'll get back to the cap here in a minute. Now this is your arm that is going to go around and collect your signal. This looks pretty good. Everything in here so far looks pretty good. Now here's where a lot of these can go wrong, and really I think this is the whole geniusness of this design. I actually am a big fan of the Optispark and its engineers.
Chuck, let's look at the components that make up ABITS. Why don't you do this one?
Thanks. You give me all the hard stuff.
What we have here, and this all looks pretty clean. I've already looked at it. You can tell I got the screws out. But this is a tone disc that actually has 365 increments in it to tell where the engine's at and to tell it where exactly to send your spark to which cylinder at which time. And the other upgrade that I did to this is I kept my old Mitsubishi photo sensor. This is one thing you want to clean out with some electrical cleaner, and as well as this tone disc, I'm going to do all that. But a lot of these aftermarket, especially the cheaper aftermarket Optis, they come with a really crappy photo sensor. This right here is kind of the key to your timing and your sanity. So I've been running this one. I pulled it out of my original distributor. So this photo sensor is 31 years old, very well made in Japan sensor, and it will stay here for as long as I have the Opti. But to anyone who has checked out my shorts, guess what? The Opti was not the problem. Let's go ahead and let's explore some other things to check before you go through all of the craziness of pulling off your water pump to see why maybe you are having a misfire or your engine is running rough. So before we go any further, your cap. Now you want to make sure that these contacts all around here are clean, as well as the one in the center. This one looks pretty dang normal. I am going to clean those up. But what we want to do is we want to take our cap, and then we want to take a voltmeter, and we actually want to ohm out, figure out which of these pins in here go to the pins out here, and then try to get a contact between each one of them, and then do a ohms reading and see if any of them are, you know, high ohms or anything. What happens is these have traces in there that run from each of these little pins to each of these pins. And what happens is inside of here, they can get corroded and they could start to fail. So definitely check that out. I might be doing this a little bit out of order, but one thing you do want to check is your spark plug. This can tell you exactly what cylinder you're having problems with. Well, I did find one that was completely fouled out. So the next thing I did, what you want to do is take every single one of your wires. This probably should be the first thing. And you want to take your voltmeter and then put it to the little horseshoe, the ohms reading, put it to 20K, and then check each of the ends of these. This one looks like we've got 7.62. The normal is about 3.5K to 12K per foot of ohms. That's normal. And now for anyone who is following along at home would know, what I found is we do have one here that I actually thought was going to be just completely fine, but when I ohmed it out, reads completely open. I was getting about 1 meg, but that's what you want to look for right there. That means that this wire is completely shot. You want to check that first. So basically all of that misfiring and rough running was because of one little spark plug wire. I just wish I would have known that before I pulled the engine. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be replacing every single gasket on the engine, cleaning every nut and bolt along with the rest of the engine pieces, painting the engine, cleaning up all the engine bay. We got a new sound system from Toto to install, got some minor maintenance, a secret engine upgrade, and with enough likes, comments, and new subscribers, I might be able to finally get the roadie affectionately named Miss Elizabeth a new paint job. I literally could have dropped this bolt from anywhere in this driveway and it would have fallen right into that coolant. What's up guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to get free horsepower for free. So these upgrades are very specific to a Gen 2 LT1, 91 through 97 I believe, but these upgrades are definitely something that are going to work on like a multiple array of vehicles. Actually the first one that we're going to start with, the coolant bypass on the throttle body. Actually I've got a Gen 2, I've got a couple of Gen 2 LT1s out in the garage. Let's just go out there and let's look at it to make it a lot easier. Okay, so basically what we're going to be looking at is this one right here going down to there. Kind of hard to see on there, so let's go look at this other one. Okay, so here we have a Gen 2 LT1. I believe this is out of an Impala. And here's our throttle body. So basically, if you look right here, you'll see there's these two pipe ends that come out. Well, this basically would go there and then that would connect there to your steam port. So what you do is you take the hose that's coming off of your reservoir and you connect it straight to that. Now these, you can just kind of cut off or just kind of leave them kind of go. What this does is this actually sends coolant through there, hot coolant, and you don't ever want anything hot in your throttle body. Bottom line, you always want your air to be as cool as it can get. So this is one thing, and this, I mean, it's negligible if you'll feel it. I noticed it just because I noticed that, you know, the car wouldn't really hit as well once it warmed up. I think that was it, but there was a lot of other issues with the car, so on to the next one. So the first one is pretty well known. You know, a lot of people actually do this, but here's one that I haven't really seen too many people actually mention. And this one, I kind of ran it by my buddy, and he said that he read back in a Hot Rod magazine back in the day, this next trick. This is my mass airflow sensor. And as you'll notice, you could see straight through it. There's usually this little honeycomb thing that's usually in there, like something on there. So, and what this is supposed to do is this is supposed to like direct the airflow over those little teeny tiny sensors in there. They kind of look like little tiny resistors. Now what this does, I don't care what anyone says, is this restricts flow. Now on most of these, they just kind of set in there. Gotta put it in there, kind of like that. And then there is a ring that you can kind of take off just by using a pick. Basically, if you remove that, that's going to definitely increase flow. I'm going to tell you that it's not huge, but I noticed a little bit of a difference doing that. And all of these upgrades added together add up. And now there's some pretty unique differences between the B bodies and the F bodies. So B bodies, you have the Roadmaster pretty much in the Impala SS and the Caprice. So the Caprices and the Roadmasters, I believe the Impala SSs as well, they actually have a smaller mass airflow sensor. And that was one of the things they did to actually kind of choke out the LT1s in the B bodies. And we'll go over a couple more of the differences that they actually did to change horsepower output between the B bodies, the F bodies, and the Corvette. So before all that, we're gonna actually get to our third tip. And all of these tips, including this one, I've actually got from other people. There's one build in particular that I'm gonna be doing a video on. We're gonna be showing you what an LS swap looked like in the 90s before there was LS. Basically, what was the LS before the LS, I think you can figure out where we're going with this. That is the build that I've gotten a lot of inspiration from and I've learned a lot from. And our third tip comes from that. Being a B body, the intake box on them are really, really restricted, meaning where your air filter goes. Now you can do a cold air intake, but I absolutely hate the way that those look. So let's look at another thing you can do to get more air into your air box for free. So let's take a look. You will notice this is the air cleaner box. You might notice a little bit of a difference. Basically what I did was I just cut out a little slit on the side and I took the original hole that had a little thing on it and I just kind of made it much bigger. I also went and drilled some holes. I figure what this will do is kind of cool off the computer as well. You don't want to take too much away to take away from the structural integrity of this, but I mean any little thing to get more air into it really helps. Pro tip, take out your headlight if you want to get more air. I didn't tell you that. Pretty much, I don't care what anyone says. The LT1 was an absolute banger, especially for its time. And I think it's still a viable option for people who want horsepower and cheap. So now, pretty much other than cam profiles and intake and exhaust, the LT1 is an LT1 is an LT1. Whether if it was in the B bodies, the F bodies, or the King of the Hill Corvette. What they did, they had to figure out a way to just really detune them when they're going into like a Roadmaster or a Caprice. You know, those were aimed at the older demographic buying them. That is why I feel the intake is really the biggest restriction on the B bodies. Taking out as much restriction as you can out of that air box while still trying to keep its integrity like that, I think is just such an awesome idea. Being able really to breathe in. That is the difference between the B bodies, the F bodies, and the Corvettes. Now, the B bodies, their heads flow the exact same. I believe the aluminum heads might make a little less compression if what I've read is correct. But the difference between the Corvette, just the LT1, not the LT4, C4 is the intake ports. And we can actually go look at that right now. And I will show you the size of the intake port on a C4 intake compared to a B body or an F body head. All right, so like I said, this is painted to look like an LT4 intake. It's a C4 intake. Don't let it fool you. Okay, so here we have two seemingly identical, except for one is painted red, trying to lie, intakes. One is very dirty, the other is pretty dirty, but not as bad. This one right here is off of an F body. This is from a Camaro or a Trans Am, whatever. This is actually from a Corvette. And ask me how I know, because if you kind of see here, these kind of taper in on the bottom, and you can kind of see where the gasket mark goes. And as you notice, these down here on what's the top but looks like the bottom, these ones just go straight down. So now this one was marketed on Marketplace as an LT4 intake, and it wasn't. They didn't really know, but I think, I'm gonna be honest with you, if dude's watching, I'm pretty sure you knew. I think that this engine and everything, I think that came out of, he had like a, I don't know, a second gen Camaro or something that he LS swapped, and I think just wasn't being very honest. So basically, another way how I know, if you know, you know, is that is upside down, but that's a 101 8630. That casting number is for a C4 intake, and that is the difference. I don't know if there's any other differences, but yeah. And the guy said he had people asking him to get casting numbers off of, we bought two engines at the same time. One was completely locked up, it's over here. I had to mess up the crank to kind of get it out, but I'm pretty sure that that block can be bored 30 or 60 over. I tried to save the crank, but it's whatever. And I think they were gonna mesh the two together and try to make an engine out of it, but then just went the LS route, which is probably smarter, to be honest. And hey, it's fine. Check it out. We got that good, the Mitsubishi sensors. That one's not, but got that. Got a couple of front covers over there. for $96, $97. Got a lot of stuff for sale if you guys want to hit me up. But yeah, so I think that's the difference. So I guess these upgrades and all that are kind of just to get you to think about what actually can give you more horsepower, especially with the LT1 engines. And now I actually did a lot of work to my Roadmaster and I filmed all of it. I actually lost a lot of it by not formatting my camera. If you know, you know. It really sucks. I really only have pictures left to show, but what I did was I put aluminum heads on it that came off of a 95 Camaro. I believe it might have been a Firebird or a Trans Am. And it got a lot of upgrades. The only thing is I've kind of been hunting down a gremlin on this car for the past maybe 5 years. And I figured out what it is. If you have a Gen 2 LT1, any of the cars, Camaros, Trans Ams, Corvettes, Caprices, Impalas, Roadmasters, then you're definitely going to want to check this out. Actually, we're going to explore a couple different things that can go wrong, that can cause hard starts, no starts, misfires, stuff like that. A bunch of different things that is not the Optispark. Starting with the coil and the ICM. Now, the exact problem that I had with my vehicle was every time the vehicle was cold, it had sat for honestly over 6 hours or overnight, it would crank up, no problem. But for the longest time, once it got warm, it would be a really, really hard crank. And then the last couple of weeks, it actually got to where it wouldn't start at all. So the first thing I started thinking about was my coil and my ICM. Now you gotta think, like this ICM, this is actually 32 years old. And what this is this is basically just a transistor. It acts as an electric switch and it tells your coil when to fire. This whole thing kind of consists of 3 different parts. You have your ICM, and also on there is an aluminum heat sink, and then there are the 2 pieces that actually are the bracket and hold the coil. This coil was a cheap one off of the Jungle website, and I've always been kind of leery of having this on there, but it's worked just fine. So when I took all this apart, there was no heatsink compound on here. Well, because it was 32 years old, you know, instantly I figured, you know, the engine was getting hot. This wasn't allowed to dissipate heat as well, and you know, that's usually when they go. Although I noticed that when I cranked my vehicle, it wouldn't just keep cranking, it would actually stop like I had a problem with the battery. This happened to me while I was out and about. I was right next to a Walmart, and unfortunately I bought a Never Start battery, thinking that that was what the problem was, because it was an old battery, and it wasn't the problem at all. But it was acting like that. It was acting like it was losing voltage, which is kind of one thing to be aware of. When these start to go, you'll usually have something else along with it. You'll have a misfire, you know, it'll run rough, it'll sputter, stuff like that if your ICM is going. Although I have seen people who have changed these and they've had success with a long start after it warming up, changing the ICM and or the coil. So what I did initially was I borrowed a coil and ICM from a friend of mine who has a Camaro build that we're actually going to be showing you here in a little bit. And it's an MSD ignition coil with a Wells brand ICM, which is what I would suggest. I would suggest at least get a standard. If not, try to get a Wells, which is a little bit more expensive, and if you've got the money, actually try to get a GM one. Rock Auto has like a surplus of them right now. So basically, I threw my friend's coil on it, all that, and it didn't go away. I even tried to put some ox guard on here, thinking, you know, it was just because I didn't have any heatsink compound on there to try and fix it, and it never went away. Now, I have also changed pretty much every single sensor on the car. That's just because I wanted to with the rebuild and stuff like that. And you know, I kind of figured between everything with the new battery, all of that being rebuilt, you know, my long start problem would be gone. I've had this problem for like 5 years. Well, I started thinking about it, and well, about 5 years ago, I put a system into this car, a subwoofer and all that, a stereo system, and there's a spot where actually the positive battery that actually goes to like the fuse and the relay box. Pulled off the little black thing which actually covers, because right there it's actually the positive battery terminal, because the batteries on the GMs are side posts and it's hard to put battery jumper cables on them. When I went to go pull it off, I noticed that it was melted to it, and instantly I knew that I had messed up, and it was something that I kind of started and never completed about 5 years ago. And that is that connection where actually your positive goes in and connects to your fuse box. There's also a couple of wires that kind of piggytail off the back of the bolt that connects all that together. And there's a couple of fusible links off of there, and you know, some other circuits being fed from that power, and everything was loose. It was super hot, and I don't know if it just kind of worked itself loose, but it was all loose, super hot, and everything was corroded. And so now basically what this was doing was, this was when it was not working, when it was getting very hot, not allowing the injectors to work properly, the ignition to work properly. A lot of stuff runs off of this fuse box. So basically all I had to do to fix it, and this is something that you should check out, is, you know, is your fuse box getting proper current? Because anytime you have any type of corrosion or anything that doesn't allow the two contacts to make contact, then it's not going to allow current to flow properly, and it always results in heat and a poor connection. So basically what I did was I took everything apart, cleaned everything really well with a wire brush, and then I put a little bit of this ox guard on it. Now this is also what I was using in the meantime for my heatsink compound for my ICM. I don't know if it's really the best to use for that, but it dissipates heat. It works very well. This makes a much more efficient connection as well as a cooler connection. When a cooler connection, anything that's transferring current from one connection to the other, is always going to be much more efficient when the connection is cool. This is a 32-year-old grandma car, so just keep that in mind.
Every time I hit the throttle on this car, it gets better and better.
What's up, guys? I'm Blow and you're watching Joe. Today, I'm weighing in on my opinion for the best performance upgrade that you could do to a 94 through 96 Buick Roadmaster or Chevy Caprice, and I'm dead serious. It costs about as much or cheaper than a standard brake job. So now, I was always taught when doing performance or racing applications, when you're building a car, you want to start from the back and go forward. So in my case, my car came with a 256 rear end, which is not posi. It's an open rear end, which means only one tire spins. That's not performance at all. That's like the opposite of performance. So one thing I knew I always wanted to do after, you know, getting the engine right was start at the rear end. And I was actually lucky enough to find an almost complete rear end out of a 95 Impala. I had to go up to Chicago to get it, but again, if you're watching, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was a major score. So I brought it back, redid it, painted it, put new fluid in it, all that. It actually did come with the backing plates for the disc brakes, but I just kind of ran the drums on it for now. And so now, being an Impala SS rear end, it's a 308 gear, and it's got posi tracks, so that's much better. It's going to give me more torque, and it's going to actually spin both tires when you get onto it. But the thing is like, this is just kind of, you know, a step one or a pre-step to the actual upgrade. And the actual upgrade, when you change any type of rear end or differential, you have to account also for, you know, the computer is going to be completely off because it's going to think you're going a different speed than you are. So what do we do for that? There's only one thing that we can do, and that is to actually tune the PCM. Tuning the PCM ain't gonna just only change, you know, the way the car sees how fast it's going and change, you know, the speed and all of that, which it does really, really help. You can't just throw a different gear in it and not tune it for it. The computer's not gonna know what's going on. This actually kind of moves into the second thing, which is tuning your transmission without putting any hard parts in it. And also, just basically the way the car sends fuel, the way the car runs, everything. There's so much that you can do in tuning your PCM. So like, back to transmission, you can change how firm the shift is. Now like, these cars were made to take Nana home from, you know, bingo hall. So, you know, they didn't want to have, you know, grandma breaking her neck every time it was shifted into second, you know. Everything inside the PCM is tuned to actually allow the clutch plates to slip more, which makes a much smoother shift. But in racing and in going fast, and honestly just for the overall health of those plates within your transmission, you want them to be just as quick as possible. and that's your shift firmness. That's an upgrade right there for the transmission. Actually, let's go out and I'm gonna show you kind of how this thing moves compared to like what a normal one would do. And then you could kind of, you know, hear it when it kind of barks second gear, or when it shifts gear, you'll hear a little bit of a chirp. And guys, please remember, this is a 32-year-old grandma car, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so here we're gonna do about 30 miles an hour, somewhere around 30 miles an hour. Got the B-roll camera up here, and then I'm just gonna hit it right after the B-roll. All right, so now we're doing more like 30, 35. Let's go ahead and let's do a pull from here, see what it does. Every time I hit the throttle on this car, it gets better and better. So now, again, for its age, that really ain't bad. As far as anything like done to the engine, I haven't done anything at all. I've descreened the maff, which is something that you put down in the tune. Other than that, I've got different mufflers on it, the regular coolant bypass, stuff like that. I do have the home plate on it, but it's actually blocked off. Other than that, I have an airfoil in the throttle body, which is the standard 52mm throttle body. Literally, there is so much more potential that you can bring out of your car just by getting that old granny tune out of there and getting a better tune with better shift points, you know, more solid shifts. And you can also do things like kick up your rev limiter as well as the speed limiter, or take it off. Everything kind of lies within the tune. It's really hard because for my particular year, it's a 94 and that's ODB1, and it's really, really hard to tune. But there are people out there that do it. Actually, where I got mine is I had mine done by Keith at PCMforLess. I've heard of him from, you know, past other people who have went to him, and I've always heard really good things, and he's definitely the man, especially as far as, well, I can only speak for the LT1s, but they pretty much tune a lot of different things. I actually have a Colorado, I'm thinking about sending one out, and we have a Camaro build that's coming up that I've talked about that we're also gonna send out the PCM to him as well. I can absolutely tell you that Keith literally did like the Salt Bay on that tune, because I was really surprised. I didn't really think that it would be as good as it is, or as, you know, as fast as it is, especially off the line. You know, jumping from a 256 to a 308 is pretty significant, but it's not like, you know, it's 373 or a 411, which is, you know, a higher, every time you have a higher gear ratio, you always get more torque, but your pinion is smaller, so it's not as stout. But I digress. I cannot recommend Keith or PCMforLess enough. It's absolutely amazing. And so now, I know a lot of people probably have already commented, or you're gonna comment, or you're at least thinking the best upgrade for a Gen 2 LT1 is always gonna be a cam, especially with the B-bodies. And also, I've had people be like, you know, you pulled the engine completely out, why didn't you cam it? You know, why? It makes no sense to a lot of people. And it's like, well, you know, first off, do you know how much a cam costs? Second off, you know, would I want to go further beyond that? Would I want to do full roller setup, you know, or would I just want to change the rockers? And then not only on top of that, you still have to tune it. So now, granted, everything being said, I really think that there's a lot more potential in the Roadmaster. I was kind of thinking about maybe doing 355 gears, beef up the transmission a little bit, maybe change the intake up a little bit, and do something like an LT4 hot cam. That's definitely something that I think is going to be coming up maybe in the future. My next plan is to hopefully get it painted soon. Maybe over the winter, I don't know, hopefully. For $215, you basically get your PCM reflashed and sent back to you. And then, like in my case, it was $350 for the rear differential. Now that's kind of good, but they are out there. You know, there are other things out there that you can actually look for, like a lot of Caprice rear ends, where, you know, of like 308 and higher, there's a lot of different ones. You know, you're gonna have to do your homework on that, but there definitely are other options out there. And I think that even without the rear end, the best upgrade, honestly, that you can do for a lot of these cars is to tune the PCM.